What's up, everybody? My name is Shannon Larkin. I play for the band Godsmack, and I'm here doing a modern drummer rundown. I'm going to show you through my kit. This is my newest one. I'm with Yamaha drums, which I've been with for over 20 years now. Also Sabian cymbals, got over 30 years. Vic-Firth sticks, 30 some years. So those are the tools of my trade. On this kit, what Godsmack did was we typically put out records every 4 years. And so each 4 years with a new album cycle, we get a new drum set and from Yamaha, and we kind of make it fit the theme of our record. So this theme was the Earth. The new album's called Lighting Up the Sky, and it's a picture of the Earth with our Godsmack sun and lights on it. And so the theme was blue. So we knew, Sully and I, we do a drum solo. He has a drum kit too. And so we knew that we wanted blue drums this time. And then the idea of coming with something a little different made us say, well, can we get the Vista lights? And Yamaha doesn't make Vista lights. However, they had the great Chad Smith, who is my favorite living drummer, by the way. And Yamaha had him for a while. And when Chad Smith says he wants Vista lights, Yamaha was like, okay. And so they found a company on the East Coast that makes the shells, the Vista light shells. And so they put all the shells together, sent them to California, where Yamaha did the measuring and put all the Yamaha hardware on. So that's how I ended up with the Vista lights. And another interesting point there, we put LED lights right underneath here, and you can see the wire there. But the lights are you can kind of see them. But the cool part about it, because Eric, my buddy Eric Singer from Kiss, he has the Vista lights also, and he has LED lights in his that kind of run a pattern. They're dots lights, you know. So we wanted to do, obviously not rip Eric off, and look a little different. So they made it kind of look, it's like a neon light rather than dotted LED lights, but they are LEDs. But Sully and our sound man, Scott, got together in the warehouse, and they did all this themselves, came up with they had the clips made that clips the lighting on underneath the rim. And so they light up beautifully at the show. So this drum here is basically molded after an Octobahn, which Tama had the copyright on for a long time. I used a Tama Octobahn with my Yamaha drums because Yamaha wasn't allowed to make the Octobahn. They had the copyright or whatever. Well, that trademark or whatever ran out after a while, so Yamaha was able to make me the Octobahns for the last like 8 years now. You have to really crank these things up to get that crack, you know. It's a rim shot thing I do. And then we go to the 12-inch tom. It's 12 by 8 and 14 by 9, which is usually 14 by 10, but they were custom making the drums the shells for us anyway. So I had them shave off an inch because when I haven't played double bass since the Wrathchild, my first band days. And then I went to single bass for the next couple bands, Ugly Kid Joe and Amen, that I'd played for. And on this one, I wanted to come back with a double bass look. And so I went 24, 22, just to put, I don't play standard like heavy metal double bass drums anymore where you're going like, whatever, you know, or. So I use it more for when I lead into a fill, I'll do a triplet on the kick drums. And so I thought the offsetting, just a little bit of higher tuning on the 22 would make those triplets just have some character, you know. So 24, 22, the 9-inch cut on the shell of the 14-inch, I thought when I set my kit up at home to kind of design what my new kit would be out here, I was having trouble getting this tom in close enough to the kick drum because of that extra inch. And everybody knows that 1 inch makes a big difference. Like, so the hi-hat, if it's an inch to my left, man, it really makes me not play as good because I you know, everything, I'm very patterned when it comes to like, I shut my eyes when I play. And so I need to know that it's there. So anyway, there was issues of spacing. And so that's why I shaved it off. Turned out, I don't even get close to that kick drum because what happened is I set the kit up at home using just drums that I had to replicate the sizes, ran into that issue because I couldn't get my tom close enough to the kick drum. And basically at home, I'm not on a riser, right, in my studio. So I could spread this stuff out. And then when the kit went to my drum tech, Shane, to set up these new drums, before I'd even seen them, he gets an 8-foot riser. So to put everything correctly and have it all fit, it's real tight. But to have it all fit, he had to set my kit up a little differently than what I had. And so the center of balance on my drums now is kind of like the old school metal center of balance where your snare is the balance. So I'm basically, even though this is the front of the stage, my balance is here. So it's like this. Right? Where without the second kick drum, my center shifts to here. And this kick drum, you can see the angle to slightly to the right. It's usually completely straight so that my balance is centered here with the John Bonham kit, right? And I'm facing this way. Well, now I'm shifting a little bit. Now my balance is this way. And it's because of adding the second kick drum, right? So at home, I had my balance set with the kick drum completely straight, and I moved this kick drum pointing farther to the left, right? And so, because like I said, I don't do the standard metal drumming on the double bass, it's just used for accents. So I would come off, right, the hi-hat, this pedal was a lot closer to the hi-hat. So I'd come right off the hat, you know, with the triplet. So when I get to the show, you know, and see these new drums for the first time, we had 2 days of rehearsals, and it was before the first show of the tour. Fly in, there's the new drums, and I was like, whoa, and it was completely different than what I'd rehearsed on for weeks, you know? And so I kind of had to go, I had 2 days to just learn the new balance of not being like this, but being like this. So luckily, I played for many years with double bass, so it was like riding a bike. It came right back, you know. And so, but let me say this, these drums, it's also my first Vista-Lite kit, and the only time I'd ever played the Vista-Lites were the Ludwig, when they released the John Bonham Vista-Lite kit, the orange, had the Zoso head on it and everything, and Sully bought a set of them and set them up with the pasty cymbals, just like John Bonham's kit. And I played it once at a party at his house when we were just on stage just jamming Zeppelin songs the whole time. And honestly, we were drinking, it was a party, and I wasn't really, oh, how do they sound? It was more like, oh, I'm John Bonham, right? And so when I got these, I didn't really know what to expect as far as like how good these drums are gonna sound. And I'll tell you a little funny antidote for that is our sound man, because acrylic drums, that's what we call them, but they're really plastic. And so my sound man goes, yeah, I didn't know what plastic drums would sound like. And I'm like, plastic drum? Well, I guess you're right, they're plastic. But it turns out they just sing, and that's, they sounded better than I could have even imagined. And our sound man saying, it might be the best sounding kit I have. And over the years, I've used birch, maple, oak is my favorite, by the way. And especially for the studio, I don't know how these are gonna, live up under the microscope in the studio, but for live, it's been the best sounding kit I've had.
Hi everyone, it's David Frangioni, and we are so excited to bring this incredible content to you, to the drumming community. But the fact is, such a great percentage of you are not subscribed to the Modern Drummer YouTube channel. So please hit the subscribe button below. Hit that, be a subscriber on our YouTube channel so we can continue to bring these innovators, these incredible drummers to you all the time. We're so proud and excited. And pick up Shannon's issue of Modern Drummer, August 2023. This is an awesome issue. I can't wait for you to check it out. It's available in our shop, moderndrummer.com, or hit the link in the description. And all of these issues, they're here for you. They're waiting for you. We're so excited to bring them to you. The drumming community, Modern Drummer, over 45 years. And we'll see you again soon. Thanks for supporting the drumming community.
And so we're using these Remo. I've been with Remo for 25, 30 years too. And we went with the coated Emperors because the coated Emperors take some of the decay. So if I hit this drum, I get doom. With a normal head, like we usually use pinstripes for 20 years. And it sustains a lot longer. There's another 2 seconds. And so we were trying to deaden them a little bit. There's also a little bit of snot, I put on them. Just, the floors don't even need it. But that's what the coated Emperors are for. The negative of that is you got to change them more often. They wear out quicker, the Emperors, with rock drumming anyway. But, and yeah, the controlled sound snare by Remo, snare head, I've played for, I don't even know how many years. It's my favorite. Every snare I have, pretty much I put this head on, as well as the Power Stroke 3 kick drums. These kick drum heads are just a staple for me. I don't even consider a different head for kick and snare. Toms, they're interchangeable depending on the environment or the situation I'm in, studio, live, whatever, and the drum itself. But yeah, I've got this Super Bell Sabian Ride, which has been a part of my sound for a long time. And back in the late 80s, believe it or not, before I was even signed, I was in a band called Wrathchild America, and we ended up going and getting signed to Atlantic, touring with Pantera, Testament. We were thrash, right? And so our version of thrash. And there was a place, this is before Guitar Centers. I'm showing my age here, but it's okay. But before Guitar Centers were everywhere across the nation, I grew up in West Virginia, which was on the Eastern Panhandle, which was about an hour and a half to 2 hours away from DC and Baltimore, right? So that's why I don't have like the redneck accent or whatever. Where I grew up, it was very close to major cities. And so I would go to a place called Veneman Music, and it was in Virginia or outside of DC. And it was like a Guitar Center, and you'd go down in the basement and there was this huge drum section. It was like a dream for a 17, 16-year-old kid. And my band was already playing and had built up a following in the DC, Baltimore area. We were rising. And this guy named Doug McCooch worked at Veneman Music, and he got a cymbal, and Sabian had just come out. And I don't know if everybody knows the story about Sabian, Zildjian, but it was two brothers. They separated the one brother had owned the formula that Avitas had left his sons. So he started Sabian, separate from Zildjian. And one of the first guys was Phil Collins, and their big ad motto was Phil switched. And then as drummers started switching from Zildjian over to the Sabian, it'd be Shannon switched or whatever. You know, I didn't have any name. But so anyway, Doug McCooch at Venom and Music gets a cymbal from Sabian called the Super Bell. And it was a prototype. And they said, hey, Doug, because Venom was also the biggest dealer of Sabian cymbals on the East Coast at the time. So they said, hey, Doug, can you give this cymbal to a player that will be interested, that plays a lot, and can give us a review of what this cymbal is, how they like it, etc. Because they were thinking of making the line the Super Bell, right? And so I happened to be in Venom that day when Doug gets his cymbal and says, hey, and we were friendly, and his band had opened for my band, whatever. And he's like, would you be interested in this prototype Super Bell by Sabian to give a review and play it? And I said, of course, And so, again, I wasn't signed, so I wasn't endorsement. It wasn't an endorsement. I just lucked in to getting this cymbal. And it was just like this one, a big 22-inch with a giant bell. And so I took the cymbal, I played it, I fell in love with this cymbal. It's been on pretty much 90% of the records, over 39 records I've made in the last 30 years. And this cymbal's been on every one. And to the point where when I called Sabian, I said, yeah, I love this cymbal. Can I have it? And they said, well, you have to send it back, but we will give it back to you, which they did, by the way. And I wasn't even endorsed by that. It was just a cool thing. I've always loved Sabian. They're a very personal company, And so anyway, their Super Bell that came out, they sent me that prototype back. And they ended up, I'm not sure if they called it the Super Bell or the Mega Bell, but they ended up putting it out. And the grade from where the bell comes and hits the cymbal, you can see it's not as sharp as what happened on the bell. That, this one is a later model. This is one of the newer ones. And so, but the original ones had more of a dome top like a normal crash. The bell is more pronounced, dome-like, The one that I have, and I still have this prototype, the grade is almost like this. So, there was different tones within the bell, you know what I mean? But again, I loved this cymbal so much, and when they ended up making the Super Bell by Sabian, it was different than the one I had. And then after a few years, I got worried that what if I break this cymbal? What if I lose this cymbal or whatever? And so I ended up sending that back, and they replicated that cymbal for me and made me a second one, because it ended up not being like the models that they went with and put out, right? So I have these two unique cymbals at home that I use on records only, what I mean?
And on a side-by-side comparison, are they very similar to each other?
Very similar, yeah. They didn't get it perfect, but it was really close and still very unique to the ones that they sell in stores and all, with a more pronounced bell rather than a gradient level. I use the DTX Yamaha, and the brain is over there, and my drum tech behind the amps has the brain. And these are the only two electronics I use. And this is the 808. And this is like a shaker kind of sound for the song Voodoo. And so that groove is just, so I'm using the floor tom as like the hi-hat part kind of, right? The groove is, and so if these were on, it's a, so it's a kind of a wood block shaker thing just for Voodoo. And then in the other songs that I use these, they're for 808s that are either tuned to D or C depending on what we're playing. And when you hit the 808, it has to be in tune with the band or else it sounds crazy and not right, So this 808, I use probably 2 or 3 songs. And then the Voodoo, I use this as a shaker and a wood block. But the groove is really cool. because, you know, and I pretty much, you know, said we don't use click tracks and all that shit. So, you know, I started with just a, that's the voodoo groove. Yeah, so this snare drum is 12 by 6.5. It's maple. This didn't come with the kit. This, Greg Crane, my buddy and the A&R guy at Yamaha Drums, who's an amazing human, he sent me this out of the blue because I was at a NAMM show years and years ago with Greg, and I saw a drum set that was in this color, and I said, man, I love that color. And so when Greg got this through his office, he thought of me and just sent it. It showed up at my house. We were off, and I get this drum. And he said, hey, man, thought you'd like this, you know? Ends up, I brought it with me on tour. I just loved not only the color, and which, you know, it's like a turquoise almost, light blue turquoise. It works with the blue kit and the blue theme, and it sounded better than all my other drums. The actual Vista Light snare that came with this kit, I used for the first few shows, and it sounded good, but it didn't sound great. And this sounds great. So I went with this drum. Again, this is a 12 by 8. This is a custom 14 by 9. And then when you got your 16 by 12 and 18 by 14. And then you got your 24, 22, and then these are the Chad Smith. They're not called the Chad Smith anymore. I think he switched over to Pasty or something. He left Sabian too, but he designed these cymbals, these China types, and I don't know what they were called. I call them the Holies because they got holes all in them, and holy is a cool word. So my Holy China types, you would think, I mean, I would think that they would break because of the holes put in them, but I played Chinas ever since I was a little kid, and I break them constantly because, you know, when you're slamming, I'll play these beats, and I love to put the China type on the quarter note. So, you know, if it's all, you know what I mean? And so you're hitting it hard. So I broke a lot of them in the past. And then I get these Holies. They don't break. You can break them maybe once we'll tour for a year and I'll break one, maybe two of them. But before I was going through a China type a week, literally, with the regular ones. And these Holies, you know, not only do they sound better than any China type I've ever used, but they don't break. And so, you know, for you new guys coming up with, you know, for the money, these are the best cymbals for the money I've ever played. And then, you know, your 18-inch rock crash, double A, Sabian. There's your 19-inch, and this isn't a rock. This is a medium crash, 19, a little thinner. Because I use this mainly for the crash ride thing. A lot of our choruses, instead of going to a ride, I'll go to the crash ride, we call it, you know, so. So it sounds nice and bright, you know, to make the chorus. The thing is, usually in the verse, you're on a hat, you know. So you want to try and bring the song's energy up for the chorus, so you go to a crash ride, you know. And then so a middle eighth where we might bring it down into a tom thing. Then I'll use the ride usually in middle eighths rather than in the chorus where most cats would use it. But and then the X hat over here, just always closed, you know, for when you want to do some double bass, you know, if I'm like, you know, I can do some double bass work with a hat rather than having to be on the ride for double bass. So the drum solo, it's not really a drum solo, it's like a piece, a musical piece. The band is still on the stage, all four of us. And so it's a piece that we put together to showcase Sully's playing and you know, because he's a great drummer and he played drums all his life, and you know, it wasn't successful in as a drummer as far as his band making it or whatever. So he said, you know, I'm going to try singing. Turns out he had the voice of an angel, right? I mean, he has a very specific voice, and in rock music, I feel like it's, you know, if you have a recognizable voice, as soon as you hear it, you go, that's Soundgarden or that's Godsmack, whatever, you know, that's what's special. And so Sully had a special voice. So he called me, by the way, I'll get to the solo, but this is an important part of our history. I'd known Sully, I mentioned Wrathchild earlier, and we were playing in North Carolina, and a band called Lex Luthor opened up for us. Well, Sully Erna was the drummer, and they opened up, it was back in the day in the 80s, literally 87, and they opened up for us, and they opened up with a Metallica song. And Metallica was a pretty fresh and new style of music, thrash, you know, and I was already into that, and I saw them play, and I'm like, wow, that drummer. Ended up meeting Sully. He came back to my hotel that night. We partied and became friends, exchanged numbers. You know, this was back in the day before cell phones. So we kept in touch for many years, right? Hey, we got a light show going on. So anyway, when 1997 came around and Godsmack, by that point I was living in California, and Godsmack was coming up and selling out all the clubs, and all the major labels were coming, knocking on their door. And Sully called me and said, hey man, I got this thing, I'm singing, sent me the CD, and I was already in a band called Amen that I had done the LA club scene. It was a punk band, and I'm very loyal, I'm like a pit bull, you know? And so I was like, I can't do it, dude. I'm with this band, we put years into it, and I loved my band. And so he understood, and they moved on, got Tommy Stewart for those first 2 records. And then of course Godsmack came out, sold 5 million, and Amen came out and sold 5,000, you know. And I was just like, oh well, maybe it's not in the cards, you know, for me to be in this, you know, big ass band. And then of course years later Tommy didn't work out, and I got the call. By that point they'd already sold, you know, millions of records. And so, you know, it happened for me. Well, as soon as we got into the rehearsal place, and I was with Premier at the time, and so I got Premier to send me a new kit to Lawrence, Massachusetts, where Godsmack was, right? And it shows up, and Sully had his Yamahas already set up in there. And so I set my Premiers up right in front of his Yamahas. And so what did we do? What do 2 drummers do with 2 drum sets face it? We start jamming, man. And they were grooves, and then pow, and you have a 4-bar to fill. And then that's where the whole idea was born for the whole drum solo thing, you know, the solo. And so you know, we started designing it using an old song from the first record called Get Up, Get Out, that has just a nice tempo, doosh, doosh, bash, doosh, 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 batum. So then you go pow, you got the 3/4, and we'd have like trade-off fills, which also brings excitement to us each night, because it's the only part of the set really that we have any, we can go off the script and we can improvise, and improv fills, you know, where, you know, and I've always been like this. Like if I go see Rush, and I've spent hours in the garage learning that song, I want him to play it like the record, so I can see if I'm playing it right, you know what I mean? So I hate when I go see and they don't play it like the record, you know? And so we play every song, I play it just like the record. And so every night, it's Groundhog Day again, right? I'm playing the same thing. So the drum solo section of our set allows me a little time to improvise and you know, play drums, you know, off the cuff. And, you know, of how I'm feeling that night. Oh, I'm gonna try a different fill tonight, you know what I mean? And, but yeah, we moved, basically, I start a loop, I loop this beat. It's a cool beat, but it's all. So I loop that, and then my drums roll out. We got mobilators that are moving drum risers, and then I'll roll out, and then Sully will start with the hands, and he comes out. And his kit, he has his kit set up very similar to mine, but one kick drum, one tom. And then instead of having an octave bond, he put up a timbali, you know, to offset a little bit. But then behind it, in this area naked for me, he has a percussion set up. So when he rolls out, he's facing the crowd with percussion, right? And I'm looping that beat for him, basically. And then we do 2 sections of that. And then we come out, and then he jumps around to the drum kit part. We face each other off, and he starts the beat. The band's playing along, and then we get those moments of 4 bars where we can do fills off the cuff or whatever. And so that adds excitement for us each night, because now it's anything can go. You know what I mean? It's live. And so like last night, and sometimes your mind goes blank, and you're we look at each other and we're like, what was that, dude? And we're laughing, and it's a tension breaker, you know? Because like the solo, for most of our fans and for us, it's like the highlight of the whole set, you know what I mean? It breaks the tension of being hard. We're a hard rock band, so when we come out on the stage, we're all business. He doesn't say a word to the crowd for 3 or 4 songs, you know? We play, and it's not a smiley thing. We're out there, we mean business. Godsmack, you know, and we're going to kick ass. And then as the set progresses and gets towards the solo, then it becomes fun. And we can, you know, we loosen up. Everything loosens up and start smiling, start having fun now. The solo brings the party.